Hello. So I have the gym to myself at the moment. Score. And that means I get to do all the things that I usually am too embarrassed to do when there are other people here. Like play my music out loud, for one. That is the biggest upside of being here on my own. This is especially nice because, as you can see, I still use the lovely wired headphones because they have saved my phone on one too many almost drops for me to ever give them up. But also means that when I don't have pockets, which is most of the time, the phone just goes in my bra. So I'm just, kind of constantly holding my chest while I do anything that involves any kind of bending over. So that's awkward as fuck and also really annoying. And then I get to do all of the stupid ab exercises that I think look silly, but also my core is really fucking weak. So they need to be done. They're just dumb looking. And also, I can talk to myself and no one will know. So, even though there's no person in here to see me, there is still a camera in the gym. So, if a guard happens to check the feed, they'll just see me fucking talking to myself and doing stupid little exercises on the floor. But you know what? I'm sure they've seen worse, so I can't be too embarrassed. But I think, as I mentioned before, I am still procrastinating on my EE. No, okay, I've started writing it, at least. But yeah, the first draft, all 4,000 words of it, I think, or however much I have done, is due Friday. Today, it is Wednesday, the October something of 2023. And sorry, on the treadmill, gotta get my steps in. But I've asked for an extension, so we'll see how that goes. I'm taking a gap year next year, so I'm not applying to schools this year. So my predicted grades don't really matter. So either I get an extension and I'm able to do a good job my first draft and get good feedback, which is preferred, or I submit a half-assed, half-finished draft on Friday and get not very good feedback, but it still won't hurt my PG really, because no one will see it. So it doesn't really matter. But I still want the good feedback, tasty feedback on my writing, and I can still talk to my teacher and get his opinion on stuff. But I'd rather but I think it's a lot more thorough, when it's written, and he can help with specific phrasing and stuff maybe. So it would be nice if I can get the extension. But I am working on it, and mostly I think talking through my ideas really helps me sort of see where I'm going with them, helps me think them through, which is why you're here, to listen to me. But yeah, so as I mentioned, my EE is about history of punk and the factors that influenced it, but specifically looking at the importance of political factors in the US and UK. I've had a bit of an issue defining political factors, but I think I've put anti-war stuff in there, politicians in general, so in the 80s, Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan. And then there's a big anti-establishment and almost anarchic nature, especially in the UK, of punk, and I'm not sure whether that goes, sorry, I'm changing elevation on my treadmill. I'm not sure if that counts as political or just ideological, I'm not sure what category that fits in, but it's okay. And then the other things I want to bring up are race and class disparities and something else, but I forget. But I don't know, I'm comparing how the scenes are different in the US and the UK. I don't know. I've tried writing an outline for it 5 times, how I want to group stuff together. And I made another one this afternoon, and I think this one's pretty good, because I actually started writing my paragraph, a bit more of an idea of where I'm going and how I want to organize it. I'm starting with an introduction, what is punk? And then introducing big players in the US and UK scenes and sort of like how they evolved, like how they came to be almost. So like that's like where I'm talking a lot about proto-punk and shit, especially like the New York scene. And then from there, I'm talking about how punks communities came together, like as like social groups. Because I interviewed one of my mom's friends who was a punk in California in the 80s, and she was talking about how like we're all like the outcasts, like the oddballs, and like that's a common theme, right? So I think that's why I'm introducing that. And I might tie some more stuff in there, but I kind of forget what. But that sort of like helps set, like I'm calling that whole section like setting the stage basically, because it gives you all the background information you need to know in order to like be familiar enough with punk to be able to understand what I'm talking about when I talk about factors affecting things, you know. And then I don't know. There's this great quote from Elliot Kidd that's in my book, Please Kill Me. The name of the book. Please don't actually kill me. And it's like something about like great music, either like great lyrics come from either pain or rage. The New York bands were much more into their pain, and the English bands were much more into their rage. I think that's actually a really good way of looking at it, honestly, because like in my mind, punk is like, there's a lot of anger in it, right? Like upset with like, it's like rebellion. It's like upset with the way that things are. And like in the UK scene, there was like, that's like where the anarchic nature comes from. So it's like, oh, we fucking hate how the world is right now. And like, we're just angry about it. But then the US scene, it's like, oh, so-and-so just wrote songs about his girlfriend, right? It was like much more personal pain. And I think that's true because like there wasn't that same anarchic sense in the US as much. Like of course, like they were so like, oh, the establishment sucks. But, like what they were rebelling against was less like the government, but more like societal norms, I guess, and like hippies. They fucking hated hippies. And so like they focused much more on like their personal pains and like, which came from societal issues and like societal norms, right? But it wasn't like we hate the system, burn it down. It was like the system sucks and here's how it sucks for me, sort of. I mean, of course, that's not universally true. You can't make any fucking generalizations, but I have to. So, hang on. And then there's also this great quote, because like I'm talking about it, about the politics of it, right? About what political factors led to this and like how politics plays in. Because like there is a definite common ideology among many punks, right? But I also have this quote, like I start off, like my section about politics, I start off as like, just a reminder, I have a quote about it, like, punk was not a political movement. There was no manifesto. There was no test to get in. It was just a bunch of kids who liked the same music and were upset about things. And they tended to share some common political beliefs, and that came through in the music. But like the movement itself was not political. There was no written down like this is what we believe. There were commonalities, but it wasn't proper like that. It was a musical movement, it was a social movement, it was a cultural movement. It was not a political movement, even though there were political aspects. So I try and make that really clear, because I think that's a very important thing to remember, especially the way that I'm talking about it. Is like, these are like the common beliefs, the common things that led to it, but it's not the hard and fast rule. Like there's even another quote I have about like, you look at the same lyrics by fucking The Clash or something, I don't know, something political, right? Or, I don't know, something like that. And like, I think it's meant to be like a sarcastic criticism. And so like left-wing people embrace it as this like sarcastic, like scathing criticism. Far-right people took it at face value and was like, yeah, let's be Nazis. Like, I don't remember exactly how it was, but like each side interpreted the same like lyrics differently. And that's possible because there was no manifesto. And that's not what my fucking essay is about. That's just me like setting the fucking expectations, but I could talk about it forever. I mean, I have 4,000 fucking words to fill. I might as well go off about it, right? Until my teacher tells me that I'm going on a tangent. But yeah, so I'm comparing, okay, like the first, I started writing this paragraph. The first one, the first political topic I'm covering is anti-war. That's pretty solidly politics, I think, right? That fits, like it's got it. No, we're putting it there, because it's criticizing the military and the government, because okay, fine, cool, that's, fine. Anti-war is politics. We're putting it in that category. And so I talked about, the U.S., the fucking Vietnam War. And so I don't know, I put a Ramones song or whatever. And then I was like, oh, there's also that same anti-war sentiment in the UK, they clashed a bunch of shit about that. And so that's one thing where I'm compare, they're similar. Reagan and Thatcher are pretty similar, I think. But I need contrast, because my whole fucking point that I'm proving is that it was more prevalent in the UK. Shit, I think about it a bit more. I think I just have to accept they both did have political aspects, of course they did. But that in the US, there was, again, they were less upset with the government, let's call the government as the man, just for now. Of course they were against the man, but it was more societal norms, And okay, sure, there's an argument that can be made about how much government fucking hell impacts society. But right now, we'll just say that it's against societal norms. In the UK, it was also that, but it was also the system is broken. I mean, of course, in the US, just assume that everything I know it's more complex than this, okay? But there wasn't that same anarchic thing as in the UK. So I think, I've kind of been avoiding anarchy, because at first my teacher wanted me to do it all about anarchy, and I was like, nah, I don't really care much about anarchy, I don't want to fucking research it. And so we switched to this topic. But I think I'll probably have to bring it in, because I think it's one of the best ways to prove that the UK was more political. So I think I'll have to. Okay, shit. More fucking, I've been researching this shit for 4 months, and there's always more. Okay, and then, race stuff. Yep, think both of them. I think there's more to talk about in the U.S. And then, what did I say? Class. Class is much more of a thing in the UK. So there we go. There we have a bit more contrast. Of course, you can compare both, but there's a bit more contrast to those two. I think the US tended to have more racial stuff, and the UK tended to have more class stuff. And then, one of my favorite parts is the first thing I wrote is about what did I call a section, shock factor and faux politics. In one of my, I did another interview with another guy from California who was in a band in the 80s. And he talked a lot about shock factor, shock factor, just put it at that. And a lot of the stuff they did, a lot of the stuff they said, a lot of the stuff they wore was just to piss people off, basically, and to be shocking and jarring and break the norm, because fundamentally they were against the norm, right? They were rebelling against the norm. And so I have a big section about how there was a lot of Nazi iconography that was used, a lot of swastikas, but how I'm about to be kicked out. But just because they used that iconography, it wasn't political. Even though it was political iconography, it wasn't. They weren't promoting the politics of it. I think that's why it's faux politics. So like, there's this really fucking funny quote from some producer, I don't know, in the New York scene, and she talks about when like she first brought the Dead Boys in to record, like the first day in the studio, they were covered head to toe in fucking swastikas. And she was like, get those fucking things off now or leave, like you're replaceable. And they were like, whoa, what? Like we don't even know what the fuck this stuff even means. And she was like, I'm Jewish, sit your ass down, I'ma tell you what it means. And like, but they like genuinely didn't like know. Or like, it's possible to do like a little bit of, like, how can you not know like a little bit about World War II and the Holocaust, right? Okay, I mean, I'm saying that with a modern perspective, but it's fucking World War II, right? But like they didn't understand, I guess, the extent of it, like what it really meant to people. And like, once I had explained to them, they're like, oh, fuck that shit. But like, they knew that the Nazi, like the swastika, was shocking to people. And that's why they did it to piss people off, not because they were Nazis, right? And like, even I read Steve Jones's memoir from the Sex Pistols, and he also has a section where he talks about like, oh, I went down, like I was feeling rebellious, I went down to the store and bought my swastika flags, and even like the infamous Sex Pistols interview with Bill Grundy, one of the guys is like sitting in the back with a fucking swastika on his shoulder, and no one even mentions it. There's like, oh no, they said fuck, they said shit. Never mind the swastika. But even in Jones's memoir, he was like, I wasn't racist. Like I grew up like in a really like mixed neighborhood. Like I had a lot of black friends. Like I wasn't racist. I didn't understand like the understanding the Holocaust had not really sunk in yet. Like I didn't really get it. And like that's why like I bought the swastika, because like I knew it was cool, like other people were doing it and it was shocking and it pissed people off. And he didn't understand like the real meaning behind it and like why it pissed people off, I guess. Which is so fascinating because like you see it come up again and again, like on both UK and the US, like the swastika specifically. And like you would think that like, oh, fucking punks are Nazis, but they're really, really not. I mean, okay, of course there were some like fucking skinheads started out as not what skinheads are now, right? They became Nazi fascists fucking later on, but like in the beginning they really weren't. But yeah, so like there was like a lot of this Nazi imagery used, even though they weren't Nazis. So like one would think they were making a political statement, but they really weren't. It wasn't about the politics, it was about pissing people off, and therefore, even though it looks political, it's not. And then there's another, oh my god, fucking Malcolm McLaren. Ooh boy, what a fucking character, right? Goddamn. Yeah, and so before he managed the Sex Pistols, he was in New York, managing the New York Dolls, and like, I think it can be argued that he killed them. But also, like, they were on the down and out anyway, so like, yeah. But like they had like the red party, so he dressed them all up in fucking leather suits, hung a big like communist flag behind them, and like there's an interview where he was like, I hate this like Warhol-esque like disposability in American culture. This is what McLaren is saying. I didn't want the dolls to be disposable. I wanted to give them a real political message. And so like he was the one who came up with like all the fucking communism bullshit. Because like he knew that, oh, the fucking US, like in the Cold War, of course they're gonna go, ah, the communists, ah, the Soviets, ah. Like they get off on that shit. So like Malcolm was trying to make it political. There's no, like happened on the next page. It's like someone like in like the dolls was like one of the dolls was like, oh, if like we thought it was dumb, we hated it. One of the ones in the like someone like one of their friends is also like Malcolm wanted to make them political, but like none of the dolls knew anything about politics, no one cared. We all just thought it was ridiculous, and like it's kind of funny because I'm arguing about how like the UK is more political, right? And here we have like a prime example of like the British one trying to push a political agenda and the Americans being like, nah, fuck that, it's stupid. But also, Malcolm was trying to give them a political perspective, I guess, or like trying to make them like a political statement, but not for a political reason. It wasn't because he wanted to promote communism. It was because he wanted clout. Like he wanted it to grow their brand, to grow their popularity. Like he knew that like Americans get wet for communists. And so he and so like he pulled this whole communism stunt, like Red Party stunt, trying to make them political, but not for political reason, just for like the views, you know, just to get people talking about them again because they were kind of dying out. And again, we see, technically yes, the Brit wanted to be more political. Woohoo, that proves my point. But also, even the Brit wanted to be political, not for political reason, and therefore the point is moot. And now you see where the it's so fascinating. Like there's all this different shit happening. Like all these and all the different players had different things. Because like in the UK, the Clash are political, like Joe Strum or whatever. But the Damned are like, no, we just want to make fun music. And both are totally valid and both are punk. Like same in the US, like Dead Kennedys are like super political, whatever. And then you have other bands who are like, oh no, my girlfriend left me, boo-hoo. Like, yeah, on both sides there are players who are very political and players who are not. And so it's just about generalizing, I guess. And like, I don't know. Also, I'm kind of banking on the fact that like whoever reads and grades my essay isn't as knowledgeable about this as I am, so that I can just kind of be like, no, believe me. And they'll be like, okay. Like, for example, like, most of my research in the US is like on the New York scene and like a bit of Detroit as well, especially for like proto-punk stuff. But then the people I interviewed were both from the California scene a little bit later on. And so I'm just using them interwoven. It's like, ooh, America. But like, obviously the East and West Coast are very different. And like, they were very different scenes. And like, even in my book, they talk about like, they were different. I, especially as an American from the East Coast, knows like the rivalry between these like East and West Coasts. Like, it's so fucking, like, I grew up with it, you know? Like, it's just in the culture. And so like, of course, I'm like, oh, like, yes, they're both like American, but like, they're different still. I'm just hoping whoever reads my essay isn't going to be like, but you're using Western perspective to prove the East Coast. I'm just like, no, it's American. And I think they'll just be like, no, it's American. I don't think anyone thinks about this as hard as I do, but I really care. But yeah, I don't know. I just ranted at my friend about this like all of lunch already, and like, I have all the information in my head. I can talk about, I mean, over fucking 20 minutes now. Like, I can talk about it for a very long time. I just don't want to write about it, and like, I'm not quite sure what my arguments are even still. Like, I have some of them, but I'm not sure how to prove my point. I think talking it out has helped a bit, though, I guess. I think also I'm worried about weighting mine correctly, because I'm meant to be focusing on the political factors. There's also all these other ones to think about. But I think as long as I just write a lot and go more in depth about the political stuff, and kind of like, not like skim over the rest, but like not go as in detail. Just kind of like mention it, and like, okay, mention it, here's an example, this is what it means. And just kind of like boom, 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 my different things. And like, I can place like the weight in the political stuff, and the rest of it, I'll be like, this is also important, and I also prove it and talk whatever to make my point, but not to the same extent, not as in-depth. I don't make it as important as political stuff, because the political stuff is what I'm meant to be focusing on. And I think if I do it that way, even though like I have a lot of stuff to talk about that isn't political, I think it'll still work, and it still won't, and it'll still feel like I'm following the prompt close enough, and that should be okay. But yeah, wish me luck. Wish me getting my extension because I really fucking need it, low key. And yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry. I feel like super into punking through everything I've just said. I'm sorry. That's why, like, as much research as I've done, and as like interested in it as I am, and as much as I want to respect it, like, I'm always terrified, like, that I know the least in the room, you know. And so I just have to bank on the fact that whatever old fart is reading my essay knows even less about it than I do. And like obviously, like I've researched a lot, and I should be more confident in my knowledge and like in my abilities and what I know. I'm just always a little bit worried, you know. But it should be fine. I just have to speak with confidence, you know. Fake it till you make it. And it should be all right. So yeah, wish me luck. Have a good one. Peace out.